Hello everyone and welcome, I'm Beastly Eel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the latest episode of The Acolyte. So there are some spoilers ahead, so if you have not seen it, please make sure to pause this video and actually watch it. If you don't care, or you've already seen it, then welcome. The big thing we're going to be focusing on is there's two main storylines in this. One with Osha and Kamir, while the other one is with Mai and Sol. So we're going to talk about Sol and Mai first, just because that one seems to have the least amount going on. Although I do have my thoughts on it, and which we will obviously be discussing. However, this takes place significantly just on the ship itself. So they're on the ship, they're on orbit of the planet, Kofor, I believe is the name of it, and their ship is having major issues. So they're having communication issues where they're not able to transmit a message to the Jedi Council to let them know what's going on. So Sol's trying to, and the only thing that they get out of that message is everyone's dead, and they're trying to figure out, and their communications is going out. So Sol's not sure exactly how much of the information went through. Mai is getting ready to kill Sol. However, he keeps distracting her by asking her questions, calling her Osha and everything else. Because that's who she's pretending to be, and she's stopping her thoughts on that piece. So she takes the wheel at one point, or takes the pilot seat to really kind of focus on that piece and kind of how do I want to phrase this? Basically, like control of the ship and everything else. She's then asked to look at the communications array to see if things can get better. So she goes and starts to try to fix the ship. However, Pip and the mole creature realize that she's obviously not Osha, she's Mai, and try to mess with her. She then resets Pip's to factory setting, along with trying to stop the, like I said, the gopher creature that kind of sniffs her out. Tracker, I guess is the best way to phrase it. So during all of this, Sol and Mai have a conversation where she's basically stating, I lost a lot when being a Jedi and everything else. And Sol's like, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. And then she's like, I'd like us to actually talk about exactly what's going on, like what actually happened on my home planet, because I know I want to make sure that there's nothing else you're hiding from me. And I think that's when Sol realizes exactly what's going on, although he's not really hinting that he knows. So she goes to take the head of the ship to set off let communications know of what's going on. While that's happening, Sol comes by, stuns her, knocks her out. He shuts off the communications array and takes off. We don't know where, but he takes off. Mai is then tied up, and he explains that the two of them need to talk. And that this was the only way to get her to actually listen to him. However, we don't know what's being said because the episode ends, of course. So another part of this episode has to do with the fact of the Jedi Council. Apparently the Jedi Council, there's an issue going around where a senator is trying to take over everything. It's unclear who it is. We don't know who it is or anything like that, so it's very interesting to see who that is and everything else. However, we know that there's big involvement with the Jedi right now, where the head Jedi that we're aware of right now, which is the Green Woman, she is talking with the senator and everything else about trying to figure out what's going on. However, she gets interrupted by one of the Jedi Knights. She respectfully, stops the conversation with the senator. She talks to the Jedi. He explains what's going on. She then decides that they're going to have a team go out to the planet to figure out what's going on. So she takes a team there. She goes there. They figure out that there was some sort of incident that went down, and that Sol and two people left. So she and the rest of the team go out. They see all the dead bodies of the Jedi. She kind of feels what's going on and feels like there was a massive presence that somebody took out all these Jedi with ease. The Jedi Knight thinks it's Saul. She's not so convinced. She thinks it might be something else. However, one of the creatures comes to, like one of those beetle creatures flies around. She takes her lightsaber, whips it out to a purple lightsaber whip, and slices the beetle creature in half. She then explains that there's a lot that they still need to investigate, and then they leave, and that's the end of their part of the episode. So now we're going to talk about Osha and Kamir. So Osha wakes up in this like cave, like room in the mountain type thing. She goes out, sees Kamir. She follows him with a knife to try to kill him. She sees him take a bath. She takes his lightsaber, and he's like, "Do it, just do it." I'm sorry. He just gets up and leaves and says, "You can follow me if you want. I really don't care." And there's a lot of that where he's like really trying to be like, "You just do what you want. Kill me if you want. I don't care." He also tells her she could swim to the ship if she wanted to. It's going to take a while, but she could do it, and then she could just leave. And he also explains like, or you can wait until the tide goes away, and then you could just walk right to it. And during all of this, she's kind of like trying to figure out what to do and everything else. They then have a conversation inside of the mountain house, and he's basically explaining to her like, I know exactly what you go through. I've lost everyone, and to lose everyone is where you actually feel the most free. And there's scars on his back, and he's not really explaining what happened. He's kind of like having her guess, and he's also alluding to the fact that he knows how she's feeling, and now they feel very similar. So she takes his lightsaber at one point, and he goes, "Fine, use it. Strike me down. I know that's kind of what you want to do." And then she starts using different forms, and he's like, "Well, maybe you should lift your elbow up, your other elbow up a little bit higher, so you have a better chance of defending against certain attacks." And she's like, "Well, why? Like, so you were a Jedi?" He's like, Sure." He goes, "I was a long, long time ago." And then he explains that she's like, "Well, what do you want?" And he goes, "I want the power of 2." Which, for those of us who know Sith, we know that obviously there's the Master and the Apprentice. However, at one point he pushes Osha's buttons to the point where she takes his lightsaber, turns it on, and puts it right to his throat. And he goes, "See?" And I think she realizes that she has more of the dark side in her than she realized, which is one of the reasons why. Which is why the fight happened to begin with, which was where he's like, "Well, why did you just leave? Obviously they kicked you out." She's like, "I didn't kick out, I failed." And then we really figure out what was going on there in that piece. And that's when which I think he was playing her the whole time to get her to admit everything, because he knew something was going on, because she prized the Jedi more than she admits, and she's not one, and she didn't stay as one, so obviously something must have happened. So that's when she kind of sits down with him and has dinner and everything else, and he explains like what he wants, which is, like I said, the power of 2. And he explains his armor. Caspian armor? I could be wrong with my pronunciation, or I could be completely thinking of something else. But it's an armor that dulls the senses and allows which also resists lightsaber and blasters. And what it does is it takes away the sense, so you only feel the Force. It dulls your senses on purpose. So he offers her to try it on. She refuses. He goes to do something else. At the end of the episode, she puts it on. We hear her breathing, and we see that it only has like a slit that you can see kind of like a little bit, but you have to rely heavily on your of the Force. And with her breathing and everything else, that is how the episode ends. So we're seeing that Kamir is not a bad person overall, because he kind of like really focused in this episode of like, the Jedi were trying to stop me from being me. So yeah, I had to defend myself. And then we have Soul, who literally ties Mai up to speak with her. So there's like a lot of like the typical dark side and the typical light side are doing the opposite of what each other would normally do. And I think that was a cool dichotomy that we see here. Also, I didn't like how the episode ended personally. I really wanted it to like have a little bit more of an ending to it, where kind of like it was very much like a what's gonna happen now type of thing. Although we pretty much know that Osha's probably gonna go more on the dark side. Mai's gonna realize that she's not your stereotypical dark side user, where she's gonna be more of I don't think she's going to be Jedi-esque. I think she's going to be more of like realizing that there's more. You can use more than one side of the Force. The one thing I will say that I didn't like was the whip lightsaber. I know we were getting it in this series, but I didn't like what we got it, how we got it. It looked weird. I don't know. Maybe it was the angle. Maybe it was just the fact that it was used against a creature that, wasn't all that important. Especially because she killed an innocent creature without it technically attacking her. I don't know. There's a lot going where I wasn't too thrilled with it. However, it was purple, and we know that purple means a light user who also uses dark side abilities. So that's also another factor too that could make her not care about that. So there's a lot going on that we need a lot more answers to before I feel comfortable like really stating my opinion on this stuff. Even though I kind of already have. But I'm definitely curious to see where the rest of the series is going to go. Just because